What's going on, everybody? It is the Rum Champion with Steve the Barman. We're here to talk about cane juice rum. Okay, sorry.
Wow. Wow. I've just been rinsed by some guy from the US. So welcome, boys and girls. If you are not on Instagram and you don't know who this guy is, then seriously, you need to get on Instagram. This is Brian, the Rum Champion. He's got a little bit of a YouTube presence, but I've been bullying him for the last hour or so. We've been chatting for an hour or so. We've been bullying him to get more and more on YouTube. So hopefully you YouTube fans will see a bit more of him. But if not, at the Rum Champion on Instagram, go and stalk him. We have just been chatting, and I've just hit record because we started to go down an agricole, a cane juice rabbit hole. And I think that's a great time to hit kind of record. So Brian, just before we get started, what's your backstory with rum in 30 seconds? Go.
Sure. So for me, went to tiki bars growing up, really loved it, and then strayed away from it because I went into the typical male, well, there's nothing more manly than drinking single malt scotch. Somehow, the lockdown happened. After that, when people felt comfortable to meet together, I threw a tiki party and wanted to have the tiki drinks that I grew up loving. So Navy grogs, Mai Tais, you kind of take your pick. Wanted to make sure that the cocktails were really good. So I ended up finding a channel on YouTube called Distinguished Spirits. And then I realized that, oh, wow, all of these tiki cocktails that I love are calling for 2 or 3 different rums. So picked up a copy of Smuggler's Cove, which you referenced, started collecting a bunch of rums, and then I got sucked down the rabbit hole to now 335 bottles of rum from 50 plus countries that are behind me and below me.
Hang on, just very quickly, which way is your camera? Is your camera like landscape or is it Instagram?
Yeah, the webcam is.
So hang on, boys and girls. We might be able to, if I do that, and I'm playing with a new piece of software.
The audio noises, Steve, are fantastic.
I don't know how to make it big screen. I'm trying to make it big screen, but that's not working. We'll go for that. Anyway, you got the idea of what he set up's like that behind him. So there we go. The whole. I think for a lot of us, I was the same. I'm a bartender, so I went down. I was always attracted by umbrellas and pineapples and stuff in cocktails. So that's what kind of attracted me to the whole tiki thing. But the point of this sort of video that we kind of chatted about is the whole cane juice and agricole and things like that. Something very new to me. I chatted earlier, I said to you earlier, it was kind of one of the first sort of videos I found or saw of you, the Instagram put in my face about agricole. And go and say what's your sexy French thing? Agricole. What do you say?
Rum Agricole.
Yeah, that's it. Say that again. Rum Agricole.
Rum Agricole.
There you go. So how did you and why did you get into rum agricole? How's that?
Yeah. For me, it was really a lot of the tiki cocktails called for agricole view, right? So that would be an aged rum agricole, and that's called for in the 1944 Mai Tai because Wray and Nephew 17 doesn't exist anymore, so you need a dark Jamaican rum. So Worthy Park 109, Karuba, Myers, if you want to use that, and it calls for an aged rum agricole, so something like this, and that basically just means that it is aged in a barrel. So my whole thing was deconstructing all these cocktails, and you'd find agricole, and then I just started purchasing every bottle that I could find. And I told you the story earlier, but it wasn't this bottle of Naison. It looks like Nissan, but it's Naison. It's the one that Steve actually has, everybody. And I opened it, never understood, never even knew what Rum Agricole was, thinking that, okay, it's clear. It's going to smell like Captain Morgan or Bacardi, if you will, neutral on the nose. And I got my nose really in there and went, ah! Because it's really grassy, and if you're not prepared for it, it will creep up on you and surprise you. But in that moment, it's almost kind of like I went through the second hidden door into another speakeasy of the world of rum, because you really start to understand the more that you try and the more that you expose yourself to, that rum is the world's most diverse yet most underappreciated spirit. So case in point, this is Rum Agricole from Martinique, and this is Rum Agricole from the lovely, lovely state of Hawaii.
Hawaii.
This is Rum Agricole from Reunion, which is an island off the coast of Madagascar in the Indian Ocean. This is Rum Agricole from Guadeloupe, from the island of Marie Galante. And that's just some of the examples. Ooh, and actually, you know what? This is Ron Agricola. This is from Puerto Rico, Ron Pepon, sugarcane
Ooh.
juice distillate from San Juan Artisan Distillers, which is phenomenal. And the list goes on of different distilleries doing that. And then you can go a level further. And we're not going to get too complicated, Steve, I promise. But then you can say, okay, well, Copali, for example, this is cane juice, but this is in Belize, so this is just rum. There's
Just
no,
come close to the camera again. You're a little bit blurred. There we go. Get your face in front of the camera. It like the camera, like there you go. Yeah. Oh, reset. There we go. Oh, it's coming. You're blurred. And I just need to take a minute to apologise for my camera because my camera was zooming in and out a second ago.
Okay.
I think. Oh, there it is. There it is.
All right. So with Belize, this is Copali made in Belize. So this is just rum. There's no rum with an H, which is a whole nother thing. And then two other things to show you. So in Brazil, they don't call it rum. They don't call it rum agricole. They call it cachaça. And that's actually the world's first cane distilled spirit in the New World. And, you know, hundreds of years before that, they were calling it arak in Indonesia that was distilled by the Moors, or in India or somewhere in between. And that's just cane juice. And then, of course, you have stuff like this, which is aguardiente, which basically just means firewater. Now, this Paranube says aguardiente has been around since the 1500s, along with cachaça. And then here's another one. This is similar. Rum from Ecuador at 60%, so briny. And then the last thing, without getting way too convoluted to bring us home, this is Claren. This is Haitian moonshine from Bellier. Yep, you got it.
I've got one.
Yeah. And so, the point being is this is cane syrup. So all these rums, a lot of folks are completely unaware and unfamiliar with, and they all have distinct and different characteristics. So there's a lot you can do with them. You know, T-Ponche is something that we've talked about, but once you get down this rabbit hole and really understand all the differences, and there's a wide world of rum out there, and rums that I can get, you can't get, and rums that you can get in the UK, I cannot get in the US. And so it's just the more that you want to learn and understand, so then I can go and say, oh, for example, if somebody tells me, oh, I only really like tequila or mezcal, I'll use this in a Paloma, and it's absolutely amazing. So
which one's that? Because we've got three over here. I know it's not the age one. Is that that's the middle one, isn't it?
Yes. So this is the one that's I have all three of them as well. I actually recently picked up this one. This is the single cane varietal. So
oh no, right, okay. So that's the one I don't like. I prefer right, the red label. Yes, I prefer the red label one.
Yeah. It's and all of these too, and again, not getting super complicated, but you look at the back of this, and the thing that these two have in common, obviously it's different distillates, so cane juice, cane syrup, but they both use wild yeast. So if you like funkier characteristic rums, these are some to check out for sure. I mean, even some of these, like this is the common theme with a lot of these is there's a lot of all green olive brininess, which is why I use this to make an agrigroni, if you will. So that was some Lillet Suze, just to the nines, delicious.
Yeah, we hate Suze. We've got a bottle down here somewhere if I've got it, but Suze. No, I filed it somewhere. Oh no, it's right there. I filed it there. That's what he's talking about. Suze. So, just very quickly, Eric was over here for the rum show. Eric Holmes Key, and I tried all of those. I don't know what that new range is called, but you've just shown us from Reunion. Fantastic rums, and they are definitely. So what Brian's holding up there, they are definitely making an appearance on my channel because all of them are under 50 quid in the UK as well. But that was some stunning stuff. Oh, he's off again.
Sorry to come away from the camera. This is the Fiji single origin. So these are the single origin series. They're not at cask strength. I mean, this is 100 proof. This is, what is this? 92. So these are a lot approachable, but this is one of the best liquids I've actually had. And it's really cool to see Holmes Key. They initially started with, hey, single casks, cask strength. The bottles are pricier, and they are phenomenal. So this one up here is a Fiji 2001, and oh my goodness, it's amazing. However, like you and I were talking about, they've realized that rums at a lower price points that are a bit more accessible and available. There's a pretty big market in demand for really good quality rums without any additives, which is one of their core pillars. So,
So,
Eric, if you're watching this, hey,
hey, Eric. So I should have put my Homes Key badge pin on. So, okay, so let's bring this back to cane juice then. I was going to say agricole, but cane juice, because this could go off on a different tangent. I don't know what your answer is going to be to this. But if you had to pick an island, a country, with your favourite styles of cane juice rum, where would you be going? Like what's got your heart? And to precede this as well, we're chatting earlier about business and all that going forward. I definitely think you've got a role as like the sugarcane juice, like global rum ambassador or sort of thing. The way that 5 minutes of you just talking about agricole was more passion than I've seen from a lot of agricole brands in the UK. So that's something for you to go. But anyway, country wise, where are you going? If you could only pick like 1, 2, 3, 5, but what are you going for? Nissan. So tell us,
yep,
because I haven't featured this yet on my channel because I've done the summer. Well, I'm in the middle of summer cages. I kind of called it quits on Martinique because I wanted to focus on the big brands. But I have got Nissan. I have got HSE Parcelaire. I have got D-Pass up there as well. So Nissan is a newish. I've got no knowledge in Nissan other than it's one of the smallest ones in Martinique. So
yep.
why have you fallen in love with it?
Well, and this is not a knock on other distilleries. I really like, JM, or as the French would say, GM. La Favorite is phenomenal. Bay des Trésors, like there's a lot of great ones, but for me, Naisson just is a cut above the rest for the quality, for what they've done. They've been around roughly about 100 years, and it's an interesting story. So it's run by Gregory. I'll have to say it in the French. Gregory Naisson. It's Naisson. The N is silent. It's like Django, but the D is silent. And they've been around about 100 years. But the original founder, it was him and his brother. They knew nothing about distilling, so he basically told his brother, "Hey, you're going to go to France to study chemical engineering." And thank goodness he did, because Naissance, it's unique because they built their own Creole column still. So with this whole thing, Martinique has this certification. It's an AOC, kind of like champagne can only be called champagne from the region. It's only Rum Agricole if it has the AOC. And there's a few things. It has to be cane juice. It has to be single column stilled. There's a few other things. I don't want to go down the rabbit hole, but they actually built and designed their own because of the founder's brother, who decided, yeah, we need to actually do this a little bit differently. And so, they've been around for a while. They're not massively exported. And I really fell in love with Naisson, especially after going to Singapore. Was synced up with a group called the Rum Cartel. I got to get you connected with Fred, because he's awesome, and just trying a bunch of different Naisson from a Maison du Whiskey shop, which is random that I think there's only 2 in the world. One is in Paris, and the other one is in Singapore. And so you're just trying all these Naisson rums and everything like that. This is one of the most delicious rums that you will ever be able to drink neat. This is their Reserve Special. This is about $50 a bottle, maybe 60, but still in that wonderful price range. So the quality, and then I also like that the locals, they call it Zepol Carré, which basically, because of the bottle, it means broad shoulders. So I've always kind of loved that name. Exactly. So yeah, whenever. So I mean, it's just really cool stuff. And honestly, I've made a lot of different tea ponches with a lot of different Rum Agricoles. This is definitely up there for me. And of course, if there's folks watching from Guadeloupe, they'll tell you that their white Rum Agricole is better. And then the people in Martinique will tell them that, well, it's not Rum Agricole because you don't have the AOC certification. And then it's this beautiful rivalry. And then, of course, those two don't really look too kindly on things from Réunion because it's not Naisson or it's not whatever. But the whole thing with these rums, Naisson and all of them in general, this happens to be the one I gravitate towards for tea ponches. But these are all so sophisticated, so refined, and less than 5%. I might be off a couple percentage points. but less than 5% thereabouts of the world's rum, anything from the sugarcane plant, no matter what name we're going to call it, comes from sugarcane or cane juice distillate, which is a shame because it's actually a lot more sustainable. You're not having to go through a refining process, releasing carbon dioxide. You're just taking the plant, you are pressing it, and within, typically 24 to 36, maybe 48 hours, plus or minus a couple of days, you're fermenting it and then you're distilling it. And it's wonderful.
This is the big thing I've kind of sort of realized with a lot of rums, actually, like molasses as well. But in the US, you get very different rums to what we get here.
Yeah.
And so this is like, I think, looking around, I think this is one of the only, so how do I say it? Nissan.
Naissant.
Naison. I think this is one of the only Naison rums that we get in the UK. I certainly haven't seen that one, and I certainly haven't seen the aged one. But then I
Yeah.
haven't. Yeah.
So for us, and then this one I just do have to show you. So this is 140 proof. L'Esprit. This is 70%, and it's phenomenal. It is so good. Again, I'm not. There's this whole other argument that perhaps on another episode you and I will talk about of people thinking that it has to be cask strength or distillation strength or whatever. But with these, these are all imported through Ed Hamilton. So the aged one that I had showed you, if you look, it'll say right here, special bottling for Ed Hamilton. So he and Caribbean Spirits are the ones importing the Naissant line. And even so, there's stuff that I had in Singapore where Naissant did some collaborations with Velier, where they had the Zapolcare, but they were black bottles with hand-painted artwork. And so there's actually some cool collaborations that Naissant is doing with a really famous French artist, Cyril. I'll send you his details, but I met him in Singapore, delightful human being. And there's so much rum even that's coming out of Naissant that I have never seen and would never have been able to try unless I was in Singapore or unless you go to Martinique. And it's really that way with a lot of different islands. So I've never had any rum from a distillery called Boulogne, which is in Guadeloupe, and it's a pride point of that country. Again, if you live in that region, if you don't, it's Biel, and if it's not Biel, then it's Père Labat, which is what I showed you guys earlier. So it's just cool to see rum has a very strong sense of community, particularly in the Caribbean or wherever it's distilled, minus its dark origins of slavery. It's become now a point of national and even regional pride. So, there's folks that are, Naissant is my go-to. There's other people that, I only do La Favorite. And then, I only do Baie des Trésors or anywhere else in between. But I don't know where I was going with that tangent, but rum is fantastic. That's all I got to say.
It's just fascinating, though, because so I've for you guys, for loyal viewers, I've actually had this bottle for a few weeks now. I probably got it for reference point. Probably got it at the same time that kind of came around. So about 2 or 3 weeks now. I did make a conscious decision that I wasn't going to do that in the video straight away because of availability in the UK. But I just want to put something out there because I got a lot of love for Clement. Got a lot of love for let's try and honor Brian a little. Rum JM. I can't roll my anything. I've got a lot of love for the brands, the Spirit Bam and stuff, especially that the Can Bleu. Do like a bit of the Can Bleu. This stuff is like nothing I've remotely tasted. It is just absolutely good. I mean, the smell might put a lot of people off. It is proper
very
funky.
grassy.
Yeah. But the sipping, the tasting, even when you mix a bit of saliva with it, it's just absolutely gorgeous stuff. And I'm a big one for drinking white unaged rums, blanc rums, neat. I love like sort of unaged stuff. This is just gorgeous.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of it too. So it's really hard to pick just one, Steve, because the beautiful thing about rum is it is so wildly different. Even in an island as small as Martinique, La Favorite, St. James, GM, Clement, Baie des Trésors, and a million other distilleries. Not a million, but there's a lot, and they all have different profiles. And so it's more of a rivalry than a direct competition. At least I've noticed. There's exceptions, of course, in the rum world. But even when I went to Puerto Rico, Don Q and Bacardi weren't seeing each other as competitors. Even the global master blender Troy Arquiza, which lovely human being for Bacardi, was saying we don't see anybody as competitors. We see them as rivals, which that is a beautiful thing in the rum world, because I feel that there's a lot of, at least in my upbringing here in the US, there's this capitalistic competitive. You got to pound your competitors into the ground. But, in the rum world, you don't particularly see that. Of course, you want to sell more product than the other guy, but you're not seeing on a grand scale Bacardi trying to bash Don Q, or Nason trying to take GM and put them out of business, because they all do things differently, because it's the terroir, like we talked about. It's their climate, it's their process, it's how long are they doing fermentation. Is it a short fermentation, long fermentation, and everything else in between? Are they using similar barrels? Are they using different kinds of barrels? Is it an ex-bourbon? Is it ex-limousine? And so there's just so many different ways to take it, which is why, the unaged stuff is remarkable, but don't sleep on any of the aged agricoles. The GM, the XO is great. The VO, which is being phased out of the United States for the Volcanique that you had shown, this is a phenomenal rum to put in your Mai Tai. And I'm sure that the Volcanique would be as well. If you do that with like a Worthy Park 109, with your Orgeat, Orgeat, whatever you call it.
Orgeat.
So yeah.
That for a Mai Tai blend. Oh, I tell you what, all three of those for a Mai Tai blend. How's that?
Ooh, there you go. You can turbocharge it. And that's even with the beauty of rum, because again, and no bashing of whiskey or anything like that. But you typically know, and there's nuances between rye and all the scotches and everything, but you typically generally know a whiskey, you're drinking a whiskey, even if it's a smoky scotch from, Lagavulin, or if you're having a bourbon from Four Roses or Woodford Reserve, you typically know, okay, this is a whiskey. Now, this tastes nothing like this, which tastes nothing like this. And the list goes on and on with rum.
What's that? Hold that up for a close-up.
So
we in the UK, we haven't got a clue what that is, I think.
Samaroli. So there and I'm a bit confused of this. I thought they were an Italian independent bottler, but it says a product of Scotland. But the reason, I'm a big history nerd, and I really loved the label, SPQR, because it's the Roman Senatus Populusque Romanus, Senate and People of Rome. And they do one of these every year. So, well, that's independent bottlers is a whole nother rabbit hole that we can go down at another time.
That's part two. Okay, so here's a question for you. Right. Okay, so your opening spiel about Agricole, I think is enough to sell Agricole to the uninitiated. But right, for those, when people generically get into rum, we are talking Kraken, Captain Morgan's, and all that.
Yep.
Do you think, being brutally honest, do you think Agricole is a stretch too far for that crowd? Or is there an Agricole, perhaps not this, because that my head is thinking that's a stretch too far, maybe, I don't know. But do you think there is an Agricole that you would put in front of that audience? Or do you think they have to go down the molasses route first? Like how do you get from Captain Morgan's and Bacardi 4-year-old, for instance, to that?
Yeah. I would say probably a good stepping stone, if you wanted to go the unaged route, would be like a Kuleana. So Kuleana Hawaiian Rum Agricole, or their Hui, which would be great. Very approachable. There are some very approachable cachaças, and I can send you over a list if you wanted to link it to the video of some things that are not so quite intense and vegetal and funky. But I think that a cool place to start would be with something like this. It's 42%. It's not, it's not going to be funky. There's a lot of delicious refinedness to it. Another really good one would be.
Hang on, two secs. What's kind of the age statement on that? Is it like a view? Is it a VO or an XO? What is it?
So this one is, give me 1 second. I think that this is a 6 year. There's no age statement on this one.
So sick.
But the Reserve Special, I'd have to double check. So,
So we're potentially, oh, camera's gone. It'll come back. We're potentially sort of talking XO territories to compare it to other brands. Because as I say, I don't think we get that in the UK. So we're potentially talking, what have I got? I've got a HSE XO, which is 6 years old, I think. Whereas the VOs are kind of more sort of 3 to 4 years old, I think.
yep.
Or VSOPs are, sorry.
I'm looking at this up, and so this is up to 10 years old.
Oh,
That's
wow.
what this. Mm-hmm.
Wow. So do you, because I like just chatting to you, I know you kind of like your blancs as much as you're aged, but do you have a specific point with age? Do you like longer age? Do you like younger age, or does it vary rum to rum?
It varies rum to rum, to be honest. Yeah, it really does vary. I mean, there's some really long aged stuff. What I will say is, I had the Appleton Hearts Collection 1984 when I was in Singapore. I had a tasting of it. 37 years tropically aged, and it was a bit too much for me. For me personally, it tasted like the barrel had overtaken the liquid. Again, everybody's taste buds are different, so that's 37 years tropically aged. Another example of something I absolutely love is this is malt grain and cane. This is a 22-year-old aged rum from Mount Gay. Oh, yep, sorry,
There we go.
from Mount Gay. And
Wow.
this is this is 6 years in Barbados and then 16 years of continental aging in Europe. But this rum tastes like blue cheese. So it really just depends on.
Wait. What? You can't just move on from that. This rum tastes like what?
People, I always get this reaction. So this rum
Blue
definitely
cheese.
yeah. It has a creamy pungency that at least reminds me of blue cheese. And when I tell people, hey, this is what I taste, and I think I probably condition people to that because it's like, oh, this is what I'm tasting. People go, yeah, I do too. But there's just something very creamy yet pungent about this that makes me feel like I'm having a cheese board with some like honey drizzled on top. But it's predominantly the blue cheese that's coming through because it's a very prominent flavor. So
Interesting.
again, the beauty of the rum. So this is 22 years. This is, I mean, anything from Foursquare 17-year tropically aged is phenomenal stuff. The isonomy is amazing. But then again, you can go to stuff that's completely unaged, like this. This is,
You mentioned this a minute ago.
Lovely.
So Puerto Rican. So we're used to Puerto Rico in the UK. We're kind of used to Bacardi sort of territory, and that's what else comes out. I've got a mental block. What comes out of Puerto Rico? Methuselah.
Don Q.
Don Q. Of course it does. I thought Dominican Republic.
Yeah, Methuselah comes out of Dominican.
So they're all molasses based. You're telling me Puerto Rico does cane juice rum?
Yep, they call it Rum Agricole. So this is their añejo. And this is 2 years aging, the one on the left. And then this over here is the one on the right. So it's just the difference. But these are cane juice. They are a single estate, which for the loyal viewers, if you guys are unsure what that means, it means that everything is done on site. So they are cultivating from farm to bottle. It's all done there. And I cannot emphasize how amazing this stuff is. They also have this guy, which this is a really cool collaboration. 36 months age, but this is a collaboration between Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic. So there's all these different nuances in the rum world. Again, I don't recommend going super crazy like me because then you just start going, oh, well, you got to try this. Have you had something out of Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic? This is the same thing. San Juan Artisan Distillers, cane juice from Dominican, cane juice from Puerto Rico. So, and I would have never known had I not been to Puerto Rico. It was really cool to be out there. And I met a lot of really cool people. They actually have another, it's not cane based, but there's a rum called Scryer where they're getting barrels from Foursquare. I think there's a Foursquare connection. I can't remember what specifically it is, so I don't want to misspeak. But they're doing some really cool stuff. But yeah, the big ones are Don Q. Well, it's Serrayes. That's how you say it. Distilleria Serrayes, which is Don Q. But the most popular rum on the island
is not Sorales then.
Not Sorales. Well, you could say Sorales because, it's again, everybody pronounces things in their own way. There's no right, no wrong. But unless you say Caroni instead of Karani, then
I thought it was Caroni.
I said, and that's the thing is, I mean, at this point, like, I think you just do the best you can, and someone's always just going to be persnickety. Ooh, that's the word of the show, persnickety.
So a couple of questions. I've got loads of questions bouncing off this, but just going back to the Puerto Rico, how would you're blurred again, put your face right up to the camera and go, bleh. Oh, there you go, you're cool. Yeah. So how would you compare the Puerto Rico, what was it called? Paplon?
Ron
Pepon. So how would you compare that to, say, a Martinique? So I think it's fair to say most of the audience will have seen or have heard of Rum JM or Clermont. How would you compare that to those?
So
more funky, more.
I would say it's in the ballpark, but the biggest difference is this is 100% pot stilled, where there are exceptions, but many of the rums that are done in the French style are column stilled. But again, that's not always the case, because you have Babancourt, which is pot stilled. You have St. James, which is these guys, and they do have a couple of pot stilled expressions, but those expressions aren't called Rum Agricole. So
just very quickly, I'm just jumping in here for because this should come out. Exciting news as well for you guys in the UK. Rum Barbancourt has now got a distributor in the UK, and it will be here in a big way. I think they've dropped one rum, but I think the other 4 or 5 are coming very, very quickly in this kind of label as well. So yes, I've now lost my Barbancourt virginity, and they are amazing stuff. The 50 Blanc, or I think 55 Blanc or 50, whatever it is. Oh my God, stunning.
Yeah. So these. And I agree. Babancourt is great. And again, that's completely different than these two guys here. So really, I would just say, because everybody's taste buds are different, if you're fortunate to try both and do a side-by-side, it's 11 a.m. here for me in California. So, I mean, I could pull up tasting notes if you wanted. But the biggest difference is this is column stilled. The Naissant, I've always found, has a lot more intensity than some of the others out there. So what I think a better example would be is this Culiana single rum agricole versus this. There's about nothing comparable between these two. And the reason is this has a lot more intense grassiness. This one does not. And even I like how they put the flavor notes. They say it has an everlasting gobstopper finish. And I can tell you, having done a recent rum club with them, they're 100% correct. But again, it really does show what's your process, how are you distilling, how long are you fermenting, how is the climate? Because the big island of Hawaii, while similar to Martinique, I can imagine there's probably some pretty big nuances. The fact that Naissant has its own created Creole column still, it's basically a single column still that allows them to stay within that certification we were talking about. And it's just fascinating. So that's why Naissant is distinctly different from other rums on the island.
Wow. So, okay. So I know you can't really, well, you might be able to. You can't really speak for the whole of the US because it's flipping massive. I mean, California, LA, where you are, California, I think is like the size of the UK. I think that's pretty much it. What is like the agricole scene like over there? I mean, UK, it is dominated by molasses. It's 95, 96, 97% molasses here in the UK. Mm-hmm. Is that the same similar story over there or what?
From what I've seen, and I'm going to take the connoisseurs, if you will, or the insane enthusiasts like myself out of the picture. Broadly speaking, most Americans will think that rum, if they're not in the tiki scene or whatever, rum's Captain Morgan, it's Sailor Jerry, or it's the 5 million different flavored versions of Bacardi or Don Q. So that's the base piece. When it comes to agricoles in general, the people that know about it are typically your tiki lovers, and your tiki lovers are going to say, like you had pulled out earlier, well, I know that this is calling in Beach Bum Berry's Grog Log, it's calling for an agricole view and a dark Jamaican rum. And that's about the extent that people will go with agricoles. And then there are people that if you go a level deeper, sorry, let me come back to the camera. But if you go a level deeper, you will be able to start doing things like tea punch. So But I'd say broadly, there's not many people that know and understand in the U.S. and I would imagine worldwide the wonderfulness of cane distilled spirits. I mean, and not I mean sure, cane juice, excuse me, or cane syrup distilled spirits, because a lot of it has been dominated by molasses. And there are a million delicious molasses rums out there, but it's an education thing. And even just another perfect example is cachaça. So this is a jornada, and when when I say cachaça, most people are kind of saying God bless you, and it's like no, no, no. This is rum ag, and what I've had to tell people that come over is this is rum agricole, but from Brazil, and they go, oh, but it's called cachaça. That's the biggest distinction. Of course, there's different ways and they distill, but we don't need to get into all of that. But yeah, the
So,
knowledge is really low in a long-winded answer.
so putting aside, look, I know a big part of this is simply because of the production levels. They simply Martinique, Guadeloupe. They simply don't produce the
Right.
volume that in Puerto Rico, let alone going up against Guyana and Barbados and Jamaica and all that. So putting volume to one side, there's still enough of this rum out there. So why, like, even it's the same in the UK, but why do you think cane juice rums, agricole rums, don't don't have the love or don't
Yeah.
aren't heard of? Like,
I think it's an education piece because the average consumer doesn't know what to do with it. And you can take that a level up to if a bartender doesn't know or understand what to do with this, then how are they going to tell a consumer? Or if a liquor store owner doesn't understand what to do with this, how are you going to tell? The reason why rum and Coca-Cola is probably the most popular cocktail if you will, rum drink is because everybody knows that rum goes well with Coca-Cola. Um, and so it's really an education thing. So if time permits, Steve, I will teach you how to make a Martinique old fashioned because it's called the tea
ooh,
punch, which you've done, and And so I think it's really important that we show people what they can do with these.
come on in,
So
let's do it. Let's do it. We'll make it
yep,
long.
the way that I do it is you got your lime, right? And so the way that they do it in Martinique, and again, there's a million variations, but one of the ways that I understand is you take a little disc of your lime. So cut your lime at an angle, and you
Oh,
come up
hang on.
with this.
So we're making a tea punch.
Yes.
Ah, sorry. I just heard the what did you got the rum fashion? It sort of is a rum fashion, isn't it? At the end of the
Yeah,
day.
it's a rum fashion because all minus the bitters. So I think it's if you can condense it down in a simplistic way like that. And the whole tea punch thing came out because they were doing rum punches in Barbados with a lot of punch. I mean, Jamaica, everywhere else, but they wanted to do something different and have a tiny or a little punch. So hence tea punch. So with
Tea
them,
punch.
you take your lime, you cut it at an angle, and you make a little lime disc. So then you drop that in, you squeeze the lime juice in just a little bit. Then you drop the disc in so that it faces up. So you squeeze your juice in, you have your disc facing up.
Oh,
Now,
so it faces up. Okay, that's a new piece of knowledge. I like that.
that's the way at least I've seen it done. And again, everybody does something differently. Then there's two different options. You can do granulated sugar, or you can use a sirop du cane, which is basically sugar cane syrup. And this is probably my favorite. But for intents purposes, since I have the granulated sugar, I'll do a teaspoon, and I like using a darker sugar, just like a demerara, if you will. So for me, I will drop that in there like so. And then in terms that the international folks will use, I'll use both. So you're going to take your jigger. I mean, you can free pour it. I'm big into pouring everything. So I will actually add 2 ounces. 2 ounces, I believe, is 50 mil into my glass.
60.
60. Okay, so
Yeah.
60. And there you have it. But you're not quite done yet.
Are we making a view or a blanc, a tea punch? What are we
uh,
making?
it's historically been a blanc. So for me, what to do with this specifically is the tea punch is this to 60 mil / 2 ounces of that, a teaspoon or 5 mil of granulated sugar. Again, I like the Demerara darker stuff. Wait a minute.
Yeah,
So that's
lovely.
just what I personally like. So take your lime wedge, cut that up, squeeze it in, and then once you have all that in there, you have your little mini swizzle stick, and you just swizzle it around to let the sugar dissolve, if you will. And if you'd like to add ice, you can. And again, yeah, you need a mini one in your tasting glass.
That's why I use syrup.
Yep, and see, and so that's the thing is that when I've done tea punches or I've said to put a recipe on my Instagram profile, there's always a few people that's you're making it the wrong way, and I look at it differently. I think that it's beautiful that there's so many different ways to make it, and there is no right, there is no wrong, as long as you got your lime disc, you're using the zest to max with the lime zest is really acting as your bitters. So instead of bitters, sugar, alcohol, it's lime, sugar, alcohol. And that's really what you have. And I mean, this is even another way you could spin this is just a more basic version of a daiquiri. Not even a basic, there's just less juice. And again, so we're just having either a Martinique daiquiri or a Martinique old fashioned.
So, no ice.
Some people. So here's the other factions. You can add ice if you want. Sometimes I'll add ice, like if it's very hot outside, like 35 degrees Celsius. Yeah, so I had to do the calculation in my head. Here in LA, which is about
look at you trying to humor the UK audience.
I'm trying to be the worldly guy here.
See, it's quite funny because I do stuff to cater for the US, so I always talk in ounces. I do like 1 ounce, 2 ounce, or 30 mil, 60 mil. Like in the UK, it's 25 mil and 50 mil, and you kind of like, it's quite funny.
Yeah. Well, look at us just being so considerate, and so that's you get this nice color. And there's a few times where people go, "Well, you put too much sugar." I'm like, "Is 5 mil? Is that too much in sugar?" So again, it's whatever suits your purpose, but this gives you a base starting point. And then if there's other ways that you can do. I mean, I'd imagine I've messed around not with this one, but with the Ron Pepon and made like a fantastically refreshing mojito. So any of these will have a lot of, because they are so crisp and refreshing, things with mint. I don't know, Steve, if you've used the Flavor Bible. I love that. It's basically a book that gives you whatever ingredients, so cinnamon, let's say, and then it'll give you a list by list in different ingredients that will match with it. If it's good, it will be in bold. If it's perfect, it will be in all caps and bold. So it's easy for someone to say, "Oh, I'm tasting this and I'm getting lime zest." Well, you can scroll to the the Flavor Bible, go to lime, and figure out what works, and then just start tinkering. But at least we've done a 2-for with this. Cheers, by the way. A 2-for of what you can do with a Rum Agricole.
Do you have a toast when you do your like little pop? Because you do pop up events and stuff like that. Have you got a toast?
Yeah. So my event, it's for at the end of the Rum Curious Clubs. It's to the rum,
to the rum, to the rum. Bonjour. Oh, it's simply delicious. Mm-hmm. My first tea punch was probably last year when Clement sent out influencer boxes of their 50%. It came from France, actually. So, because we don't even get the 50% Clement in the UK, we get the 40% stuff.
Oh, interesting.
So they sent us a bottle of the 50%, and it was the first time I'd ever had a tea punch, and I was like, not sure. But revisiting it this year, doing this summer of cane juice, I am hooked. I prefer those. And I think it's because I've got into cane juice rums as well. But I do prefer those over rum fashions. I'm not sure it's up there with the daiquiri because I do like really cold drinks. Mm-hmm. But as a neat sipper at the end of a night, that's gorgeous. It's lovely.
It's really lovely. And then what you can do is you can take the aged. So, I mean, if we're just going to do a different one, but you can take like a Trois Rivières, for example, and you can use that in the same template of an old fashioned. Again, you just want to understand what the flavor profile is, and it's mixing the right bitters and the sugar with it. So, but there's a million ways to do this. And then again, you can use something like this in your Mai Tai with the dark Jamaican rum. So there's just a million wonderful ways that all of this can go, and it just gets very complicated. And I even get overwhelmed sometimes just thinking about, God, like how can I make a cocktail with this? There's like 500 different ways I can go. Um,
How,
but
how
there you
many
go.
how many rums do you acquire a month? So let's be honest, right? Let's trace this back. So you
Uh-huh.
said you started. Well, actually, I don't know. You said you started your Instagram page in September, didn't you?
September. So by that point, I already had a rum collection. So the gap
Right.
between throwing that tiki party to the Instagram page was pretty much that I started acquiring all these bottles because I started deconstructing these cocktails when it started talking about, oh well, you need a Demerara rum for your navy grog. I'm like, what the hell is Demerara? What is that? And then it's not only what is it, but why is it calling for that? What's the flavor profile? So then I started acquiring a bunch of bottles. Um, my lovely girlfriend, I'd be like, I'm just gonna run to the liquor store. I'll be right back with a bottle. I'd come home with a case and be like, it's fine, baby. Don't worry about it. It's good. Don't worry about it. And so then with all this rum, I would start throwing rum parties at my previous apartment or flat for the UK folks. And I would curate these menus. I would make my own cocktails. I would do a couple of classic, tiki cocktails. But going through Jeff Beach Bum Berry's Potions of the Caribbean, I started to get color outside the lines of the falernums and the orgeats and the pimento drams, and started doing creme de cassis or ginger liqueurs or apricot liqueurs and soursop juice. So point
Wow.
being is I'd make all these different, I'd host these parties once a month. I'd have a bunch of people over and I'd be doing pretty much this saying, we know rum's great because the thing is, da 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 da. I'd give different stories or anecdotes, and a few people would just say, well, why aren't you doing this on social media? And I was very reluctant for a long time because I thought that there was something disingenuous about when you think about the typical influencer. It's something like, hi guys, I'm outside the restaurant, blah, blah, blah. I'm so excited that they booked a special table just for me. Let's go see what we're going to eat. And, I'm like, I don't want to do that. And then somebody had said, well, you don't have to make it about you. And so that's hence the Rum Champion was born out of wanting to just provide education, at the very least for the consumer here in the US initially, when they went into a liquor store, to be able to understand what they were looking at outside of the stuff that's not even drinkable, in my opinion. And that's the flavored stuff. Again, that's just not for me because I don't like it. Doesn't mean that it's not good for whomever that enjoys that. So that's really how the Rum Champion piece started. And I think the first event that I ran, it was maybe 8 different bottles because I made the 1944 Mai Tai, a Navy Grog, the 1934 Zombie, and then I had a Pina Colada just because that was easy. Because let me tell you, trying to make a 1934 Zombie with 15 ingredients for 20 friends that want it at the same time, it's a little stressful because you're sitting over your shaker going, did I put the eighth of a teaspoon of Pernod in there? I forgot. So,
That is when you're an event bartender like me. So I did. So we're filming this for those of you that follow me quite a lot. We're filming this the day after I had my my first pop up in like a year, like actually shaking cocktails. The whole point of that story is that is my zombie blend. That is like 8 ingredients in there. I just add rum and pink grapefruit juice. Job done.
yep.
3
And then
ingredient pour.
you so you and I have arrived in the same place, Steve. So I would do all those parties and I would do all that, and it was great. Started the rum page, and then I've got 330 bottles. So I acquired a lot I acquired a lot from May 2021 to now. Shifting gears to the cocktail piece, I was turned on to because of Beach Bum Berry's Potions of the Caribbean. If you haven't read it, or if your loyal and lovely viewers haven't, it's definitely worth checking out because I found out about the Suffering Bastard cocktail. It was the battle that won the British or it was the cocktail that won the British the Battle of El Alamein, which was Monty against good old Rommel. A lot of the British troops were allegedly hungover before the battle, so this bartender at this hotel in Egypt started whipping up whatever he had, and one of the mixers that he had was lime cordial. So I started making lime cordial from home, and that is the only mixer you need in some cases because it's you got your sugar, you got your lime, and then you're pulling in like green cardamom pods, and coriander. So you have this botanical sweet citrusiness, and you can do that. if you did a lime cordial just with, because that's also kind of what this is with your tea punch. So point being now though is there's other things like Jasper's stock mix, which Steve, I'm sure you know this. It's 2 cups, 16 ounces. I don't know how many mils. You'll have to save me on that of lime juice, 12 ounces, a cup and a half of granulated sugar with an ounce slash 25 mil of Angostura bitters and a heaping teaspoon or 5 mil of nutmeg. You swizzle all that stuff together. You do an ounce and a half of that with an ounce and a half of.
Oh, drum roll.
What was it? I have the rum bar as well, but anyone.
Rum fire! Oh my word!
So, and you put those with that stock mix, and it's fantastic. So much so now that I've started creating my own stock mixes off of that because three ingredients is all you need. As much as everybody loves to idolize Don Beach, and he was revolutionary in a lot of ways, there's no need to have 15 ingredient cocktails. I mean, the 1934 Zombie is a amazingly wonderful, intricate, and balanced cocktail that very few people, myself included, can make well at scale in the original format because it's just complicated. And again, for me, it's always keep it stupid simple, likable and learnable, whatever euphemism you'd like to choose.
Wow. So there we go. So that's your your rum life up to date sort of thing. It's I just find it, I look around the old interwebs because I'm always researching and I'm just little old me doing my thing. I think my thing is still inherently like getting behind UK rums, British rums.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of because we've got Ian Burrell in the UK as well. It's kind of like the global rum ambassador, and it's fun bumping into and meeting and following people like you because it just brings a new life to
100%.
rum, and people. It's not the fact that people fall in love with rum per se. It's the fact people love to follow other people.
Yeah.
And I know I've built up a little audience as well, but you've built up a huge audience on Instagram, but you've just got this infectious personality, which I think, you could sell sand to the Arabs. I genuinely think you could because, when you watch one of your Instagram reels or videos or whatever you're pumping out, it's just like, right, I want that rum. And I think and this is what I just like. I'm always a people champion. I always like to big up people and say, do more of this, get on more of this, and this is going to come back to a question because one of the downsides I think to cane juice rum is that actually the brands themselves don't do any promotion. I know
Right.
Foursquare doesn't, but Richard Seal is always out doing stuff around the world.
Yep.
I get that. But you very rarely see, with the exception of maybe Rum JM and Clement Spiribam, you very rarely see a representative of a cane juice product.
Yeah.
On social media, on in real life. And I just can't help feeling, a cane juice rum's missing a point here. Are they missing something by not having that presence?
Yeah, I think so.
How do they become a bigger deal? How does cane juice become a bigger deal?
I think it is the education, right? It's kind of
who educates
what you and I had done. So it's, hey, for example, this is Naissance, it's 100 proof cut, 100 proof. It's out of Martinique. And some people want to get really into, okay, what's the terroir like? For me, it's, hey, this is a really awesome vegetally funky rum, and here's the 3 or 4 cocktails that you can make with it. So I think it's the virtual component. It's also one of the big reasons why I founded I co-founded the Rum Curious Club out of LA, is to get people to try rum. So we did an event with these guys, and we were mixing. We actually had a cocktail competition with Liquid Alchemist and Cooliana. So people were able to get behind the bar and make their own cocktails. So I think that's what I mean by the education piece. It's much more than you and I are in our very loverly personalities talking about all of this, but it's really giving a guiding way to show people or to walk them through the experience. Because honestly, this tea punch is incredible. I mean, this is one of the easiest drinks that anybody could make, and it's even easier if you use this or some equivalent. But like, this is the one that you absolutely need to have. I haven't had the Monin, which I'll
Mon-
have to try. But that's really
Mon-
all it is. It's just
Mon-
keeping
Mon-
it.
See, again, in my English chav, morning, moaning. I think my mouse is playing ball. Yeah. So they upped their game a couple of years ago, and they actually went from like GOM syrups to actual like single. Well, I forget what they call it, single origin or something. So this is actually cane sugar. Where's my camera? There it is. It's cane sugar from Reunion. So
Oh
it's
wow. Okay.
yeah. So
I gotta try that.
they've upped their sugar game slightly.
Yeah,
I
I
think
love that.
the
I've
white
never
one
tried
is
it.
from. I don't know where the white. Oh, Mauritius. The white one's sugar came from Mauritius. So they're pretty
Okay.
decent if you're lazy like me and can't be asked to make your own.
Which, yeah, I mean, and there are certain ones that just, I mean, making your own orgeat or orgeat or orgeat,
Or
it's a process. It's for me, it's you have to take 8 ounces or whatever the equivalent is. So sorry, I'm a dumb American. But you have to take 8 ounces, at least in my process. You have to toast it on like on a grill, not on a grill, but in a pan. Then I set half aside and I just kind of chop them up with a mallet. Then the others I put into a blender to make a meal. Then I bring that together, put that in a pot with sugar and water, boil it, and then I let it sit for about 24 hours. And that's the way that I do it. And then if I want to get really funky, I'll throw in some rose water to help give it a little bit more of a smoother loveliness. But that's really complicated. So and the same thing with making your own coconut syrups and things like that. There are a number of really cool syrup companies out there. Liber & Co. has a cola nut syrup, and oh my, Steve, that is just some. Mwah. So for people like, can I have a rum and coke? I'll pull out the Liber & Co. cola nut syrup. I'll get some sparkling water. I'm like, hey, this isn't 80 grams of sugar that I'm going to give you. This is less. So enjoy that. It'll taste similar. And here you go. Go enjoy your 2 ingredient cocktail.
wow, nice. Okay, look, I'm just looking at the time here. We've been chatting. This is scary. We've been chatting for nearly an hour,
It was
right?
like 2 minutes.
Since I've hit record, and we were on for probably an hour before I hit record. So I think we need to let you get on because it's your day today. It's like whatever.
Yeah.
It's like 11:30 over there.
And it's your
But
evening. I mean, you probably have at least hopefully some exciting things in the works for the evening.
resting after last night. Not got too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. I lasted much. I'm too old to do the whole cocktail thing. But one thing I want to get, because I know you'll have some local people that, or US, close to California, close to LA, right?
Mhm.
The Rum Curious Club. How
Yep.
can people? Because I love the idea of this for the UK, but how can people get involved in that where you are?
Yeah.
You know,
So if you are in the Los Angeles area, we run a monthly rum club out of Tonga Hut. And if you're unfamiliar, Tonga Hut is LA's oldest surviving tiki bar, established in 1957. We do it the first Sunday of every month, 2 to 5 Pacific time. We typically get 50-ish people. We've sold out every event we've done there. And we have a single sponsor coming in, or a single rum sponsor. We're now having syrups and other sponsors welcome to come as well, where we're able to highlight the brand. We're able to give tastings, provide cocktail recipes, and then send our lovely members on their way. Now we actually have a partnership with a liquor store where they can actually purchase because they can't buy legally from the bar, and nor does the bar want to get involved with that. So that's one thing. You can find me on at the Rum Champion or at the Rum Curious Club. I have a website as well, therumchampion.com. And if anybody out there is interested in doing a pop-up, we are actually finalizing the details to do a pop-up Rum Curious Club in Austin, Texas. So I don't mind traveling around as well. So
Hey,
happy to
look,
help coordinate.
with the miles I've seen you do and the trips, because I've been following you now for I've lost track now, but it's quite a while now. I've sort of been probably a good sort of 3 or 4 months, maybe probably longer than that, to be fair. So, and I've seen you travel quite a long way. You know, I've got visions of you doing this Rum Curious Club all over the US because there's just nothing. There's just nothing like, even to a certain extent, in the UK. Really, we have oh, there we go. It's very London dominated. But for those people that don't live in London, there's nothing else going on. So I think this could be
Right.
the start of these little pop-ups and stuff like that. But I only wish you luck. I definitely want to do this again with you at some point. We'll pick another topic. We maybe even might deep dive into more cane juice rum or whatever. Molasses. We might go head to head on molasses rums or something like that. Some Puerto Rico or
I love it.
whatever. But we'll get Brian on again. We'll get Brian on again very soon. But in the meantime, go and follow him on Instagram until he gets his butt properly over on YouTube.
Thank you.
At the Rum Champion. We'll do that.
We'll get there. I will get there. And I appreciate you having me on. Thank you, everybody. It's been a treasure.
That's it from me. I will see you next time.